You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
What's up, everybody? Joel is allowing me to do the intro again today. This is episode 132 of the Here for Truth podcast. I'm Yerasimos. You all know Joel. We got another special episode for you today. We have the Bigelsen brothers. They're carrying on the legacy of their father's work, Dr. Harvey Bigelsen, and we're really exploring their work around holographic blood, which is really, really fascinating. We're exploring terrain theory, but in I would say, a more unique way, a more focused way. And in this conversation, I think we counter certain myths that are out there around COVID, around the events of the last few years. I just love this conversation overall. Love the work they're doing. So hopefully y'all enjoy it. But before we bring them on, want to let you know, Friends of the Truth is our community. You guys want to come hang out with Joel and me in a community from around the world. We got 3 calls a month. We got a community call. We have a live teaching. We have guest teachers that come on. We have a live Q&A with previous guests of our podcast. We got a Telegram community where we have a lot of fun and we talk shit and we learn and we get deep. So if you guys are down for that, go to friendsofthetruth.co. Absolutely love it. Love connecting with listeners of the podcast that just want to continue on their path of growing and staying empowered and, doing the things that they want to do in life. So check us out. And without further ado, here's Adam and Josh.
All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 132 of the Here for the Truth podcast. Today, we have Adam and Josh Bigelsen in the house with us. They are the sons of Dr. Harvey Bigelsen, who was a pioneer in the world of holistic medicine and author of the groundbreaking books, Holographic Blood and Doctors Are More Harmful Than Germs. Both brothers are international speakers, holistic wellness coaches, and educators for the Bigelsen Academy. They also lecture and teach workshops with their sister, Lila. Adam Bigelsen provides the latest research, studies, and technology to keep their method current and in the forefront of holographic blood readings. As an educator, Adam has helped to develop the curriculum used to teach these methods. He currently works in Mexico, where he and his team continue to offer the Bigelsen method. He's also a music teacher and is involved in the world of sound therapy. As for Josh, he's worked side by side with Adam for over 15 years under the precision training by his father and the famed Harvey Bigelsen. Joshua does collaborative investigations, educational trainings, and works with Adam doing the holographic blood consultations. These days, Josh is learning more about the relationship with the soil of the earth and of our own terrain. First and foremost, big welcome. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for inviting us. Yes.
Nah, absolute pleasure. As many of our listeners know, one way we always pretty much like to kick off these podcasts, particularly with first-time guests, is we just want to dive deep into, I guess your major rites of passage, a bit about your hero's journey, and, how you came to be in the position, I guess, where you guys are to educate on the things you're educating on. I'm assuming a lot of this story has to do with your father as well. So I'm not sure who wants to take the lead and go first in terms of giving our audience an introduction as to how this came about.
Yeah, I'll go, Josh. Sound good?
Go for it.
All right, jump in whenever you need to. Okay, so a little bit about our father. And, for people listening, what we say a lot of times are things that people have never heard before, or even the exact opposite of what people have heard before. But I have to tell you guys, what we say is not what we think. It's what we know from experience, from repeated experience. Our dad, initially, he was an eye surgeon. He was a Vietnam trauma surgeon. He was rich and he was near suicidal because he had everything he needed and he wasn't happy. And I remember him when I was younger. He was fat and we had junk food delivered to the house and it was awesome. And then he found a different way. He found a way to help people. And this is an awesome story. And sometimes I get a little out of control with it because it's a real story. This guy lived some of these things, Berlando, and it's like he went to jail fighting for some of our freedoms. Our dad didn't, but he almost did, But Josh, like I said, feel free to fill in some details if you want. What happened with my father, though, was he saw lies of the medical system. He would ask questions in medical school, and they would say, read the book. And he'd say, I think the book is wrong. He went to Vietnam, and he saw the lies that the government was saying. And he started to question the government. He also had a 98% survival rate at his hospital in Vietnam, which wasn't happening in the hospitals in the United States. So he's questioning a lot of things, all right? And he's a very high-functioning individual. At one point, though, I get sick. I get very sick. And my dad had realized there was a different way. And he went from Western medicine, big cut in pay, moved us out to Arizona, and he went to work at an ARE clinic, which is an Edgar Cayce clinic. Mm. And our dad's a real numbers guy. Right brain, left brain. I can never remember which brain.
Left brain.
Thank you. So as he gets into this new world with Edgar Cayce, he read all of Edgar Cayce's medical readings, and he saw patterns. You know, our dad's hero was Sherlock Holmes. He considered himself a medical detective. And now he's in this new world, and he's seeing patterns. At one point, though, I get sick, and Dad finds this doctor, a German doctor, working on an Indian reservation, hiding out. He actually flew in the Luftwaffe, right? An ex-Nazi, right? Comes in to work with our Jewish father on my case. Long story short, microscope, blood, miracles happen. Dad says, come work with me. Learns a little bit from this guy. That guy disappears. Another teacher comes in. Dad learned from 2 teachers, and we have hired private detectives, and we do not know where these people learned this work from. Yeah, it's really interesting. At this point, we're the only ones in the world who do this work this way. If there's anyone out there talking about holograms in the blood, it's because they heard of our father's work. He did this for 40 years almost. Now, as time went on with Dad and he found this awesome way, he gets attacked. Dad was solicited by Medicare because of his success, and he said, I don't know how to code things, and they showed him how to code things. And a few months later, he was brought up on Medicare fraud charges. So they set him up. You know,
they set him up because what? He would code things, and then they'd attack him for the
for
coding.
coding.
Well, at this point, he was going more into alternative medicine, and he was doing very well doing it. So yeah, Medicare came to the office that said you should sign up for Medicare, and he said, oh, okay. And then they came back and said, we don't understand your codes. Code things like this. And then they brought him up on code violation charges. And it was something like 178 counts, totaling a whole $1,700 in fraud. And it was a felony, and he was forced to give up his license.
Right.
At the same time, Senator Bill Frist had a $600 million Medicare misdemeanor for fraud charges. $600 million, it was a misdemeanor. Dad had $1,700 felony, taking your license away. So he was targeted.
Well, and he did
typical of anyone challenging the narrative, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he did these things. You know, at one point, he was brought up on charges of curing someone by illegal means. So we have documentation that the AMA, it was the AMA versus Harvey Bigelsen. Our dad was the first doctor in medical history to single-handedly beat the American Medical Association in the legal battle. And they accused him of curing someone illegally. So if you're listening to this, that means they did not care the person got better.
Mm-hmm. He even said that in the notes. Documentation, it says they did not care that the person got better. They only cared that he didn't do it their way scientifically.
Yeah. But he did. He got attacked. He helped people. He was rich. They took his money. He was on Dateline in the 90s, and they made him look horrible. He's been on Coast to Coast with George Norrie a few times. He's on Guy MTV a few times. Arizona was the first state that had a law that separated the AMA from the HMA, which is the American Holistic Medical Association. And our father wrote that law. So he really legitimized alternative medicine. He gave out the first holistic medical
homeopathic.
license.
He gave out the first homeopathic medical license in the United States.
When was this time period?
80s?
In the 80s.
Yeah, we got that. I think it was 80s, yeah.
81. And listen to this, guys. What they did, somehow he was allowed to play the game. They actually, you know what they did? They raised their fees, him and his friends, and they paid a lobbyist. This is how democracy works, right? You pay off the lobbyist. But they had their own FDA. My dad and these guys did something where basically the AMA had no say over them. And they grandfathered in all these homeopathic remedies. And the district attorney at one point said to our father, you keep using this word holistic. What does it mean? So he actually defined the word holistic for the Arizona legal system. And he included things like homeopathy and acupuncture and osteopathy and chiropractic. And what he did too, guys, with this law is he made sure homeopaths, at that point in the 80s, anyone could call themselves a homeopath. He made sure they had anatomy background, that they had some actual training. There was so much inconsistency. So as far as his history, he did some real things. You know, he traveled the world at one point. Burton Goldberg took him and some people around the world to experience alternative therapies and treatments. And that's when he went with Gaston Naissons in Canada and looked at that live blood for the first time in his life. And he said he got chills. He'd never seen that before. And our father, was the third doctor in US history to look at the blood live. So as far as experience and who are people listening to these days with microscopic images, it's ironic that some people have marketing teams and things like that, and everyone listens to sensationalism, but we're just a couple of brothers that have 40 years of experience with patterns and things like that.
What was it like growing up with a man like your father?
It was interesting because who was it? It was Tom Cowan or Kaufman asked us, when did we first learn about the terrain? Because that's just kind of what we teach now. There's a whole movement with terrain theory and things like that. Well, we grew up in it. We never knew anything different. We were never taught it. It was just part of how we grew up, not being afraid of germs and things like that. For me, he was already getting into this medicine when I was, getting to be of age, basically. So, yeah, for me, I never knew anything different. This is just the way we grew up. My soccer teams would come to him for physicals because he wouldn't grab their balls and make them cough. He fixed half my soccer team of asthma when I was young, just with a couple treatments, so it was always, I didn't know anything different. It was probably only until about 7 or 8 years ago when we got raided and our clinic got shut down. And I went to work for alternative practitioners in Seattle, where I realized that not everybody's doing it the way my dad did it. And it was a really demoralizing experience and a pretty intense experience. But it was the first time in my life, I think it was 2015, 2016, where I realized, well, doctors aren't necessarily getting people better. Whether it was traditional or alternative, they were selling supplements or they were given drugs. And it was the same model. If they were giving them supplements, they were just green allopaths, right? So it was the same model as the pharmaceutical companies, but they were giving you supplements for each leaf on the tree. So yeah, it was an interesting upbringing. It was only until, I guess, 2016, 2017, where I started to feel like an alien, and then of course the last 3 years, what went on, incredibly isolating. It totally felt like, does anybody out there get it? And we found as we kind of navigated the last couple of years that everybody's an authority on what's best for my health without knowing who I am. Right. And that's for traditional and alternative medicine, both. They were both telling you have to do this, you have to do that. And it's been an interesting ride. I'll give it that.
Yeah. So you're growing up, and this is just kind of the status quo for you, understanding the things that your father discovered. So like when movies like Outbreak and other movies like that came out, were you just like with your friends like, yo, that's bullshit? Like, what is this?
You'll laugh. No one's asked us that question. It's a good question. Growing up with Dad was funny. I remember I was 13 and they took me to the osteopath. And I lay on the table and this guy's got his hands on my head, and I'm going, what the hell is this guy doing? And after about 10 minutes, my body goes, oh. And I went to school the next day and I'm like, hey, to my friends, you guys know when you go to the osteopath and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, what are you talking about? But there was a point, our dad was funny. He was weird. He was interesting. He was always there, So my friends would ask him questions and he would answer. And it was interesting because after our dad passed away, a lot of my friends reached out and they said, your dad taught me so much as a kid with these little common sense things that he told people. And as our family was Jewish, which is funny, not that we're extremely religious, but every Friday night, everyone's invited over for dinner. Everyone, and our dad was like a surrogate dad to a lot of people, but I didn't realize that a lot of people just randomly, throughout our lives, growing up next to us, were affected by him. And he was definitely, he loved what he did. I remember as a kid, him coming home from work when we were in Arizona and him saying, this patient came in and they had this, and we tried this, and this happened, and then we did this, and this, so now I know this, and it was like, he was so excited about what he was doing. And watching the clinics, our dad would have treated people for free. In the end,
a lot.
In the end, it was funny because there's a book I have about why most small medical practices fail, and it's because the doctor thinks he's the businessman, but he's not the businessman. And, for people listening, you see us out. Josh and I are awesome. We've got a lot of stuff going on. This has been a real struggle. Our dad got attacked. He was attacked on Dateline, national TV, when there was only like 5 channels way back then. And he fought for people and got them their licenses. And when it was time for them to defend him, they didn't. And as a kid, we watched all this, it was a very unique upbringing, to say the least. And it is ironic when we felt like aliens, the virus thing hits, and I'm like, I don't remember Dad ever talking about viruses. We didn't treat them. They weren't a problem. They're not of any consequence. I remember him talking about HIV because he didn't see a pattern with that. Dad was all about patterns, and that was the one thing he thought was maybe man-made if something is going that direction. But yeah, growing up with him was awesome. I mean, looking back, he wasn't the easiest guy in the world. He was pissed. I mean, if he was alive during the pandemic, he'd have been famous and in jail, and he would be ripping masks off people's faces, and
he would have gotten arrested. Yeah.
But I think this is the case, though. When you look back in history, you look at people who are pioneers, like really pioneers in a new field and challenge a status quo. Like, they're a unique type of personality. I mean, even think of someone like Wilhelm Reich, or these other characters in the past. Like they're not to be fucked with in a lot of ways.
No, Dad was a little guy with a big chip on his shoulder. When he was in high school in inner city New York and Brooklyn, they wouldn't let him try out for the football team. He got to try out his junior year, and he became the captain of the football team. Right? This little Jewish guy, 5 foot something. These big guys would get off the bus and laugh at him. And he said there were Heisman Trophy winners, people that went on to win Heisman trophies, that had shook our dad's hand because of the way he was on that field.
Real life Rudy.
Totally. Yeah. Harvey. Yeah. But he really enjoyed what he did. And it was all about the patterns. And I got to tell you guys too, he didn't believe what he was seeing initially with the blood. It took him about a year, and as far as us, when we start to train people, we're not really training people. We're teaching people the philosophy behind what we do, because the people we've trained have looked at holograms and done stupid things. They've told people they need to take antibiotics and kill bugs in their teeth. And we really need to work with people that have integrity and want to help. For our dad, he was very alone, except with the people. If you needed him, you know yourself better than anyone. And what we do is we look at the blood and we just interpret what your body is saying. And everyone is unique. Totally unique. Dad would say 10 people with prostate cancer, and Dad was very famous for his cancer work, which is a very real diagnosis. 10 people with prostate cancer for 10 different reasons. And his conclusion with chronic disease, first of all, is a label a doctor gives you because they don't know how to fix you, right? So why go to them? If you want a second opinion, go to a different modality, some person. But the idea of going to these experts who've never fixed anything, they label you as chronic and they haven't helped you. So Dad wanted to just be with people. He was learning from every individual. And when people saw their blood, you knew most of the time what you were seeing before Dad would tell you, because you do know yourself better than anybody. But we lie to ourselves all the time. You see this image, and it's funny because this guy's like, that's my prostate. Yep, it's your prostate. But when you see these images, it comes right out of your body. We're not there to lie to you. There's nothing good about us lying to you. We're not selling you products at all. We're educating you. But when you see it and the mind goes, oh my God, and the connections happen, that consciousness experience changes things right away. And I think that's for Josh and I growing up, we were very conscious. I envy people who are not so conscious sometimes.
It's got to be much easier. I mean, yeah, the last few years, especially without him, I've been doing the microscope work for probably 20 plus years now, and I literally have nobody to talk to about it. There's nobody I can ask questions to. I can bring in some osteopath friends or some doctor friends who know their anatomy, and they can help me a little bit with it. But in general, he always talked about, feeling like how he was on an island, and here we are teaching his work, and we feel like we're on the same island. And this whole terrain movement has popped up. And initially for me, I was really excited because this is something that needs to come to the forefront. Nobody's ever talked about it. We've talked about the terrain paradigm in the past, and people are like, what the hell are you talking about? But now you have people who are authorities on it who have no practical experience using it in any way, shape, or form. It's totally theoretical. Right. So the only thing we're doing is speaking from experience. I didn't go to college. I've just got a bunch of years behind a microscope, and I grew up with this crazy dad who was, fixing things that shouldn't be fixed. Right. But I've got the experience. So when you hear Adam and I talk, we're only speaking from experience. It's not theoretical. And there's a lot we don't know. Dad was very diligent about letting me know that you have to be honest about what you know and honest about what you don't know. So I'll look at the blood The answer is always there. It takes me a while to get to those, get the answer sometimes. A lot of the holograms I won't know, and that's fine. A lot of the holograms I'll never know. But the last thing I'm going to do is guess, because if I'm guessing, then that's not going to help the client, right? So usually the puzzle pieces will come together. Sometimes a couple days later, I'll go back to the pictures and it'll make a lot of sense for me. But yeah, it's been a very unique upbringing in that. So it's really been awesome to see terrain come to the forefront, but now we're seeing people who are authorities on it with no practical experience. Now they're trying to sell you a detox. So they're trying to sell you some supplements and things like that. And that's not what the terrain is all about.
Yeah. When did your father pass away?
2019.
Oh, okay. So just right before
He
the
knew it
fun
was coming
began.
and said, "The hell with this! I'm out of here."
It's like, I've done my job. I've been speaking about this stuff for decades. Like, no,
Yeah.
you guys have fun.
He earned his way out, man, just in time. Yeah, we don't believe in coincidences and the way things went down. He was ready, and it was our turn to do things, And I'll tell you this too, guys. With all this stuff, there's so many things we can address and talk about, but one of the biggest things is there is a lot of hope. With the body is an amazing thing, and what it can do when we support it is incredible. And there's so much fear right now. One of the things, our business is the business of hope, that you can be better physically, energetically, emotionally, and spiritually. If you don't believe you can get better, we can't help you. That's a big deal. And right now, there's so much fear and confusion out there. If we can, what our dad said was, health is simple. People are complicated. And we do the KISS principle. Keep it simple and sustainable. Not keep it simple, stupid, because you're not stupid. Simple and sustainable. If you look at health just by sympathetic and parasympathetic, are you resting and recuperating? That's important. And looking at just observing things. One of my friends said, I don't know who to listen to. And I said, just observe and remove what's inconsistent. There are so many things going on right now where you see inconsistencies. And if you just start to remove that, you filter things and you see some truth. And this is what our dad did. He just observed over and over. It was very conscious, not believing at first, but putting these things together. And we can do this. Our job is to educate and empower people so they can take charge of their healthcare. And I think that's one reason this pandemic happened. They made doctors heroes and they don't know anything. That's a 100-year failure, the germ theory of disease. They haven't fixed anything, one chronic disease, the cure or cause, in over 100 years. And the reality is they just say we can't fix it, so it's chronic. And as a child, I looked up chronic diseases at one point. And our father had worked with almost all of them, if not all of them. But that's when I found out lower back pain is a chronic disease. It's like, come on, people. Lower back pain makes a lot of sense. We've done a lot of this, but it's really, there's hope for people that are listening. Chemtrails, they're there. The amount of the environment it takes up compared to the energy of the earth and us. And I've done experiments with the router, and looking at my blood before and after, and blood with tinfoil around it and things like that. And we are amazing. These things that we're seeing now, I appreciate the pandemic for bringing these things up. I know kids that read with blindfolds. I know breatharians that have lived for years without eating, right? We can do our own food. I have a few chickens. I have chickens. I never had fresh eggs for breakfast.
I have chickens too. My wife and I have 11.
Dude, isn't it awesome? These are the little things. And you know what that does for me when I talk to my chickens and they feed me, and this is so much better than going to the damn grocery store. And that feeling when people do that their first time, we can see their blood change. Our father said, one of the things that's more profound than anything as far as changing your pH and changing your blood is joy. Change your blood immediately.
Well, when you think of like joy, it feels so expansive. It feels like it flows, whereas the opposite is contraction, And so like these things, when we disconnect from nature, I think they just create more stagnation in our bodies. So if we're out there playing with chickens, eating food, like we're just like, we're going with the flow of life, of nature, and then that impacts us.
Yes.
And that's one of our big things we've been harping on lately is somewhere along the line, people thought we were separate than nature. Right? That we're above nature. We're trying to improve on nature. Doctors are trying to improve on nature. Farmers are trying to improve on nature. And what are they doing? They're creating giant watermelons with no vitamins whatsoever in them, is what they're doing. So we've been really, I've been getting more into the soil these days, and we've been working with some regenerative farmers. And it's much easier working with them because it's like you're preaching to the choir, right? So I can go and we've always used the analogy of our inner soil. If our inner soil is happy, then good things grow. And if the soil is lousy, then we start to have issues. Dad had a whole list of Orwellian words, which was great. Pathogenic, all right? Everything is pathogenic these days, right? Pathogenic just means out of balance. That's all it means. There's no such thing as bad bacteria. Even the alternative movement, bad bacteria, we have good bacteria and bad bacteria. It's all good bacteria, and it's there to do a job based on what your body is dictating, right? If there's too much of a certain bacteria, it's because there's stagnation there, and the bacteria is being created to clean up that area. Okay, now they call it pathogenic. Here's your antibacterial, right? And they kill all the bacteria. So now you're overloaded with shit because there's nothing there to help clean up the system. Right. So now the body's bringing in parasites. Oh, no, the parasites are your problem. No, the parasites doing the same thing in their body as they're doing in the soil. They're cleaning and stimulating the tissue. They're cleaning and stimulating the soil.
It's pretty wild in like the alternative health movement. Like there's this demonization of the worst thing or parasites. You must do the parasite cleanse.
Germs are us. That's my T-shirt right there. Germs are us.
It's amazing, and it's I've harped on it a lot in the past, but it totally offends me. These things are there to help you. Every single farmer thinks it's good to have worms in your garden. Why is it not good in your body? And it's just this simple what happens. Okay, we've got garbage that's being filtered from our system. The body creates bacteria to go clean up that garbage. The waste product of bacteria is nutrients for your body. There's always nutrients in the soil. It cannot be processed until the bacteria and the microbiology come. They clean up the soil. Now, waste product is nutrients for the soil. It's nutrients for your body. Now, if we have an over proliferation of them, right, become pathogenic, right, the bacteria's waste product gets gobbled up by other bacteria because they're all fighting in there. So now the body creates the parasite. And the parasite is like the fish tender, right? So the parasite comes and processes the bacteria on a much higher scale and processes those nutrients for our body, right? So if we're gonna go kill that too, now the body's creating a fungus, right? Now we're starting to actual mold. The mold is still trying to clean the system, but it's also helping you decompose now, right? So the beauty of it is it's very symbiotic. So the body creates the bacteria. This is pleomorphism for people who aren't familiar with it.
We need a visual for that, by the way, Josh. That would be awesome.
Well, before we get into that, let's give people some context with the basic premise of what holographic blood even is.
Sure.
Good idea. Cool, Joel. I appreciate that. A man of few words shows up with the good direction.
Gotta keep steering the ship right, mate. That's it.
Stay on target.
We'll jive all over the place. It's awesome. Okay, so the basis for the holographic blood work. Yes, what we do is we look at one drop of blood that is capillary blood. So capillary blood, only one red cell can fit through at a time. This is very important for people that are seeing images these days bigger than a red cell, with people making claims based on those images. Okay. As we look at the blood, we look at the basics. We look at the red cells, the white cells, the platelets, and the symbionts, the bions, the activity that's going on in the background there, those little microscopic guys moving around. Looking at the red cells, the basics, we can tell a lot. If the blood is low oxygen in, things like that. If things stick together, there's the rouleau that people talk about. And actually, you know what? This is a good time for me to pull up a few pictures, if that's cool.
Go for it.
Okay. So that people talk about.
Show some of the bions first, Adam.
Okay, I can. I'm not sure how well they'll come across as far as moving on the screen, because you know how that works.
So the very basis, this is all, the work is based on Antoine Béchamp, who came up with the theory of pleomorphism. And I don't know if you guys, could you see those little particles dancing around there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think those are the single most important things that there are, maybe in existence. I think those little particles create all life as we know it. Okay. They exist in animals, minerals, plants. Anything with life will have these particles. Wilhelm Reich called them bions. So that's the easiest way to, recognize them. They've been called somatids, synchretites, microzymas. So what happens is when the body's flowing, it's flowing like a nice river. All right. Everything's in balance. But we throw a few dams in the river. Now we've got a stagnant pond. And now our pH has changed. And those little bions there, they then change also. They morph into bacteria. So now the body is creating a specific bacteria to do a very specific job. So the bions will will be there all the time. They'll create bacteria when it's needed. If we don't fix the stagnation, then the pHs continue to shift, and now the bacteria then morphs into a fungus. So we've gone from acute areas to now chronic issues. Now, the beauty of it is it can be reversed. We've seen this chart being used to scare people into thinking they have spirochetes that they can never get rid of, and it can't be reversed. So the beauty is when you actually balance the system out, the fungus morphs back into a bacteria and then back into a healthy little biome. So there's a beautiful symbiosis that goes on. But I believe those things create all life as we know it.
Can you just define pleomorphism? Is just the ability for one thing to shift to another?
Yep. Based on the terrain. Okay. The terrain will dictate what it's morphing into. Yeah. You know, we've heard people like Bear and Artur Sala talk about even elements morphing, and it's the same. It's the same thing. They can change.
This is alchemy.
And life, right? And life doesn't have to come from life. Life can come from something without life, which is a really cool thing as well. But those little somatids, those bions, there are pure life. And yes, pleomorphism is the ability of life to change based on the terrain.
Well, and these guys,
one of the easiest ways to explain it is locusts. Now, I learned this recently that locusts actually form from grasshoppers. Grasshoppers will turn into locusts when there's no food. So they actually morph into locusts and then swarm to go look for food everywhere. So that's pleomorphism at its finest. That's man-made pleomorphism. We destroy the environment, the grasshoppers are going to turn to locusts, then go eat anything they can find.
Right. And this chart, it says aerobiosis. This is the pleomorphism chart. What we've learned, too, is as the symbiont, the bion, it starts to morph and adapt and change. And like Josh said, there's a point in time where it becomes this fungus. There's something that we've used, notochel is what we would call it. It's actually the waste product of penicillin. We've used it for years. It's an isopathic remedy, okay? And people that are allergic to penicillin, no side effects, nothing, no problems with it at all. It's created in our body by this pleomorphic process. We do this ourselves. The reality is we literally have all that we need. If our terrain is balanced, we really can do these. We produce our own penicillin. And the isopathics, we use 7 different remedies. They're all produced in the body through this process. And we're learning more about that. You know, our dad did a lot of things, and we spent a lot of time with our head in the microscope, but we're learning more now that we can connect with people like Berlando and things like that. So, and to complete our little process, as we look at this, we look at the blood, you'll see things like this is your rouleau, but rouleau is, there's sticky blood, low oxygen. When we look at the blood, we look at the best spot first, because your cells can be up to a day old or up to 120 days old. The younger cells are towards the center, the older cells towards the edge. So if we go towards the edge of most people's blood, we're going to see this image. If we see this all over your slide, we know you have a problem. This is where people, they'll send us images and says, what do you think of this? And the reality is we have to see the whole drop. We have to look at the person. You know, you can't just isolate like this. It doesn't work that way. So we're looking at high white counts, which is great. Josh has actually matched lab tests before, which was pretty interesting just by looking at the blood with the microscope. Lab results, he was pretty close to the white count. Platelets are a unique one for us. And I just heard this one, Josh, Dad saying, the size of the platelet for us is how we monitor your inflammation. A platelet has no human DNA in it. We believe it's a plant that lives within us symbiotically. All right, this is a unique one. And what happens is what Dad noticed is with the size of the platelet, he could determine whether your issue was more chronic inflammation or more acute inflammation. At the same time, the amount of platelets. And he said, when I heard this interview recently, they platelet count, but they do not count the size of the platelets. If you have this giant megakaryocyte, that's something going on. And for us, this one on the bottom right is actually in the shape of the liver. There's inflammation in the liver. This is what patterns our dad saw that way. Okay. You have this in your body, there's inflammation. If it's before a treatment, we know you have trapped inflammation. And as far as how the body heals, first it excretes, and then it becomes inflamed. And if inflammation doesn't work, you become inflamed, things back up and deposit, and now you have a problem.
It's a big thing for us. Inflammation is such a hot word out there. Inflammation is how we heal. Mm-hmm. Anti-inflammatory actually means anti-healing. Okay.
Yeah. And would you say that? Oh no, continue.
No, go for it.
I was to say, would you say that like when people turn to, pharmaceuticals or even supplements to a certain degree, they're interrupting the healing process?
Totally.
Absolutely. If you're killing bacteria, you're interrupting the body's natural processes, and you're leaving a weakened body to clean it up. So absolutely, pharmaceuticals are all suppressants. None of them are designed to stimulate anything.
And what do the farmers say about supplementing the soil?
Yeah, they found that when they supplemented the soil, that the plants developed very shallow roots. So the roots were not going down to seek mycorrhizal fungal relationships, right? So they developed shallow roots. Same thing happens in our body, right? If we're supplementing, supplementing something the body's not absorbing anyways, first of all, then it's inhibiting microbial connections in your body. So yeah, long term can be a real issue for you. When people are taking a supplement, how many people do you know taking vitamin C supplements and haven't eaten a damn orange in 2 years? And they're doing vitamin C capsules in such a dose that does not exist in nature. So this is now man thinking they can improve on nature.
What do you say to the people? Because I'm not a fan of supplements. Maybe once in a while I've taken a targeted supplement back in the days, but I just kind of like doing my thing. But what do you say to the people that go, listen, our soil isn't what it used to. The fruits and vegetables that we're eating we're not getting the same nutrition from them. So there needs to maybe be some targeted supplementation. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think they're right and they're wrong all at the same time. They're absolutely right.
Have they tried? Well, have they tried first?
Well,
have they been eating oranges, and are they still deficient?
Well, no. What they're saying, what he's saying though, Adam, is the soil's so poor that they're creating oranges with no vitamin C these days. There's our wonderful process going on. Right. So no, but in general, most towns there's a farmer's market. You got to get out to your farmer's market. You got to start growing the soil, growing the plants yourself. But it's a real problem. But if you're on the supplements long term, I think it's going to cause issues for you as far as how the body is connecting in its microbial universe. So it's a problem, but there's answers out there. There's always a farmer's market. Go to your farmer, support them, the real farmers anyways, the ones who are growing it and doing it the right way and supporting nature as opposed to attacking it.
Well, and that's, a recent speech with our School of Health is living without excuses. You got some space, grow something.
It's a valid argument, but there's different answers than going to buy your supplement out of a bottle. Not to mention most of the supplement companies are owned by pharmaceutical companies.
No, I hear you there. I mean, I think what you just said, Adam, in terms of just like if you have a little bit of space, just start the process. Start learning about soil. I know Joel says this very often. The old Hermetic axiom: as above, so below; as within, so without. So you think about like, oh, parasites are bad, but then our soil has it, and so it's like, why are we not realizing and seeing this relationship with nature in that regards?
Right. And it's an easy flip, guys. And it's not terrain theory; it's paradigm. These are the laws of nature. It's an easy flip. If you just look, like I'm working with children at a Waldorf school and they get it. And I don't have to now unteach them things. This makes sense. The Mexican farmer that has no money and nothing is healthy and lives to 100 years old. And he gets it. This is very simple. It's too simple for most doctors. But the reality is, people, if we do what we got to do and balance and try certain things, grow something, you're going to see a change in yourself physically, energetically, emotionally, spiritually. And holistically, we become different. This is what we're going through. It's important. I appreciate this pandemic because it's let the whole world know there's nothing more valuable than your health. Your money doesn't make a difference, and the reality is it doesn't work unless you do your part. This is what we've taught. And people would say to our dad, "Fix me, doc." And he'd say, no, I don't fix anybody. Nobody cures you. No one gets you sick. You've been a part of the problem. You need to be a part of the solution.
Yeah, I'm grateful for what happened, a few years ago, what's been happening, because it's allowed, people like us to connect and other people that have been challenging things and also allowing for ideas like holographic blood or other systems out there that challenge the German theory model to become more accepted, because people are like, what's this all about? Like, I'm curious, like never have we heard the term virus more than we ever have in the last few years.
Right. And it's, for us, we're these guys, we just want to look at blood and teach people, we don't. Right now, it's like our infrastructure can't handle massive amounts of, my microscope is a little old. And if I have an issue, I don't have a backup right now. We need microscopes. We're going to put together a microscope fund, by the way, Josh. I'm finally mentioning that. We're finally going to ask people for some help with these things. But the reality is we are connecting with more people than ever. And the right people. For me, if a virus is information that causes the body to adapt, on a global scale, we're going through an adaptation. I appreciate it. I want to live in a world with less stupidity. And ignorance is lining itself up to shoot itself, literally. I mean, if it's a war, people are shooting themselves. It's unfortunate that I know some of them, but I can, on a higher level, appreciate the soul that has come here to sacrifice itself so that the rest of us can see something, intense times, but our work, if nothing else, it makes sense. And it's never, trust me, I know what I'm talking about because I'm an expert.
Yeah.
Well, people have called us future medicine, but no, everything we talk about is old stuff that worked.
Well, and let me show just a couple more pictures too, because then we're done with the holograms and you got your.
Yeah, because I'm curious I want to know about like the holograms that pop up, what they look like. How do you get that image to come forth? What's your process? Because there's other things called live blood analysis. I went to like a Korean acupuncturist who took a slide of my blood and isolated it and then told me a few things. So I'm curious also the differences between what you do and what other people do when they're exploring live blood analysis.
There's huge differences. We've tried to separate ourselves as much as possible from the live cell community. There's so much inconsistency out there. It was apparent that my father was taught very, very different. When live cell came over here, it was kind of bastardized, and we're not going to bring up any names, but basically they're making a lot of false guesses so they could sell you a supplement most of the time. The system is basically designed to sell you a supplement. They'll say, oh, this red cell is misshapen because of vitamin so-and-so deficiency. Here's your vitamin, right? They label everything as parasites or candidas. So it's they give you these such broad answers that it can't be right, but it can't be wrong, but it's certainly not right. So for us, we've seen people take a 2-day workshop, Xerox the manual, and then teach the class themselves. So there has to be some people who've learned along our lines, but we have not met them yet. So for us, yep, go on, Adam.
It's frustrating, but I'm working on this speech simply because we're trying to be as non-judgmental as possible. But there's things happening right now with images. We know what they are, and it's kind of like making a mockery of what we've done.
Yeah.
And we really know what the hell is going on. Nothing personal. I'm a music teacher. This isn't rocket science, people. You can learn about your health and you can help yourself. Dad cured cancer or helped people cure their cancer with this terrain experience. And the blood was just the tool he used to learn how the body truly works. Now, live blood analysis and what we do is the same microscope. It's a dark field microscope. In the United States, the term dark field is actually owned by the Center for Disease Control. And you're not allowed to use it, okay? Now, live blood analysis people don't get in trouble because they didn't get the results we got. Dad got in trouble, but Dad also wrote a book called Doctors Are More Harmful Than Germs and made fun of doctors in some way, shape, or form. Now, what we do, though, live blood analysis is nutritional microscopy. It looks at deficiencies, gives you supplements. I have a doctor that worked with our father that worked directly with one of the people who developed live blood analysis and never saw him with a microscope. There's some consistencies and inconsistencies. What we do, however, we can look at a drop of your blood. We can see there's a scar that is pulling your body out of alignment, putting pressure on an organ that's affecting your emotions. All right, we're seeing physical issues, energetic issues, emotional issues. With Dr. Emoto's work with the water crystals, what he did, he tried to do with the blood first, but he wasn't able to do it, which we didn't realize. When he found out about our father's work, he was thrilled because we see emotions in the blood. All the information is there. It's awesome. Live blood analysis it's a little bit of a trigger for us because it's the microscope. It's people that are geared, as someone now is saying, why should I take your course instead of live blood analysis? Well, you can take a 3 or 4 day workshop, people, in live blood analysis. And at this point with us, you got to take our 13-week course and we'll see if we might train you. Nothing personal, but there's a lot of, I'm seeing right now, guys, unnecessary treatments based on hypotheses from an inconsistent modality. That's as best as I can say that, okay? In the end, it's about results. And supplements, you should not have to take for the rest of your life. If you have something that's a Band-Aid, if you can put a Band-Aid on the dam while we get to the back and fix your true root cause, then cool. But for us, if you have not seen us, you have not experienced what we do. I'll show you a couple more of these pictures.
Let's get past the debris and the streaking and things like that. I'm just showing them a couple pictures.
Well, I just want to say,
let's get into
go past those out.
Okay, straight to the point. Homotoxicology, if people don't know about that, they should learn about it. We'll go back to that some other day. Bones are physical issues. They look very specific in the blood, okay? This right here, by the way, see this air bubble? Or wait, no, I'm wrong. Are these COVID crystals? I think these are COVID crystals. I think this is graphene, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
This is an air bubble, and this is dirt. This is the result of me not taking a good drop of blood. Right now, guys, there are images being shared that are dirt, and people are freaking out about graphene. And I got to tell you, the original graphene guy, Pablo Campra, who wrote the first paper, bought a microscope after meeting us. All right. And then that Ricardo from Quinta Columna, my girlfriend Anna has known him for years. He's telling people things based on microscope images, and he doesn't even know what he's talking about. And the world is believing him.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that because, post-vaccine, there's all these images coming out and people are saying it's this, it's that, it's the other, and it's just stoking more fear. But then that fear is based on, misinformation.
It's the same shit on the other side, and it's all about not having the fear these days, okay? We're good. There's things going on that we should be concerned about and we should do something about, definitely. My girlfriend it's ironic that she's my girlfriend, but Anna Maria Oliva is a part of the end of COVID. And Brendan Murphy just interviewed her. She is the only one I know right now, guys, that worked in a nanobiotechnology laboratory. All right. So she worked with microchips, implanting them into things. And she knows how this works. And it's not what people are saying. All right. None of that is what is going on. Back to what we're doing, because we want to focus on answers and solutions.
And it has been a big annoyance these days with the live cell people showing these images that are definitely not what they're claiming they are. Definitely not. I mean, yeah, they're calling dirt on a slide COVID crystals. Right?
I'm laughing my head off. Slide. And they're challenging. Someone is sending me this woman's work and saying, "What do you think of her work?" And I said, "Why don't you send her my work and ask her what she thinks of my work?" And she sends out. I had a friend that gets emails from these people once a day with this bullshit. Anyways, hope on a
Yeah, what do you need to do to get that image? Like what's happening for that to show up?
You take one drop, you put it on the damn microscope, and you get your ego the hell out of the way and you observe. Okay. And we said this, even Lando said this. Josh has been hanging out with Bear Lando. He needs a microscope. We need to find one, and I think I have one that'll work. We just need the money to buy it to make sure, and then he'll get one and we'll start to collaborate. He said way back he would see images and he would say, "You know what? This looks like something, but I think it's maybe a flashback." Lando's awesome. He's like, this looks like a brain, but maybe I just smoked too much weed the other day. But he's right. And people look at these things, and the thing is this: when you take these courses, there's an overwhelming amount of detail information that you miss the forest through the trees. All right. You have to look at the whole picture and get a big picture. If we have our way, guys, we're going to develop a slide scanner that will give one big high definition image of your whole drop of blood. Mm-hmm. All right. If they're cloning something, one drop has all the information. My clone should have my broken collarbone and my attitude. And we can look at your blood. We can tell you if you're a tight ass. You know what I mean? There's so many things we see. If you look at this one here, this is my knee that someone fell on my knee at a concert. So this is physical. This is an anatomy book picture, and there's my damn knee. Okay. So
that's important to explain too, that you mentioned it's capillary blood. Only one red cell can come out of the capillary at a time. Anything larger than that on the screen, well, that's a hand. Anything larger than that is a hologram. If that was physically in your bloodstream, you would have stroked out and died.
Yeah.
Right. So these are holographic images is what they are. This could not have come out of your capillary blood. So people are showing these images, right, of these big structures that they're calling graphene or hydrogel. It's not physical. Okay. It cannot have come out of that one drop of blood. So they're either frauds or they're incompetent at that point in time. But very important. The holographic images it's very similar to echolocation. So, the bat or the dolphin throws at the energy field, it bounces off a disturbance, and then they get an imprint of the disturbance field. And that's how a hologram is created, by splitting the beams. And that's what the dark field microscope does, is it splits the beams. A light field microscope, the light goes directly through the sample. So it's an important distinction. These things here cannot be physically present in your blood. You would have had a stroke. These are holograms.
Yeah. Can you just describe, you went through a couple pictures just for our listening audience, like what's on the picture?
There's a picture of a person's hand, which you can't tell, but he had just broken his hand. And this was the image we got in the blood after that. It looks like a broken hand. Now, this image will show up repeatedly until the issue gets fixed.
So this hologram would be consistent for every drop of blood which you would take?
Something along this line, yes.
Yeah, there'll be
until
same patterns. Yeah, unless the issue gets resolved, they can come back 2 weeks later. If the same problem is there, the same pictures will show up. They're always a
What
little
if you
different. Yep.
what if you have like multiple issues? Like, will like your knee show up in the same picture? Would the spine show up in the same picture? Would your
That's where
testicles show up in the picture? You know?
yeah, there's always one event that sets us off center, right? And then other things can compound on top of that. So you need to track it back to that one event. And that's where the patterns start to fall into place. So if I see a giant platelet, which means there's a lot of trapped inflammation, then I see a scar next to it in the uterus, then I know there was probably maybe a hysterectomy was done. There was some sort of surgery done that was causing the issue. So you have to track it back to that one event. And that was kind of the genius of what my father did.
those are the puzzle pieces. And let me just do these last couple images. Those are the puzzle pieces. We look at a drop of your blood, it's all there. And it all makes sense. And there's a dominant focus. So the holographic principle, like the brain storing information in different places, we're going to see 12. When I do the blood, I'm a technician. So I get the blood for Josh and he creates the reports. I look at a drop of your blood, I get 80 to 100 something pictures, 150 pictures maybe. He goes through and then he sees there's 20 of this. There's 20 of this. There's a dominant focus. It's like your body saying arm, spine, scar, all of it. Do you get it? Do you get it? And it really makes sense in the end of this. To show you these last couple pictures to stop the screen sharing. Right side, we have an x-ray of the spine. And the left side, this is the person's blood. Those are air pockets on the left and right side. And you're seeing cartilage and vertebrae. That's in the blood.
Are those COVID crystals, Adam?
Shut up. Over here, this matches anatomy book. This is a broken femur, we see scars because scars are pulling the body out of alignment. Scars are a physical and energetic block. This one was a dental implant. This image showed up and my dad said, that doesn't look human. That looks unnatural. That looks like a dental implant. And the patient said, I have an implant that's killing me. The person got the implant removed and the image started to dissipate in the blood. And guess what? Symptoms started to go away magically. Interesting.
So wild.
We see worry cells. Okay. These have been in Enderlein's book since the 1920s, Josh. Is that right?
Yep.
You will see a very, very well-known person sharing these images for 2 years now saying that this is graphene. Okay. If this is graphene, which is a new experience in the blood, why have we seen these for 25 years? Okay. Besides the fact, guys, graphene is everywhere. It's like fecal matter. Graphene's in my wetsuit, they advertise that. So whatever. But these are worry cells, which align with...
They were documented over 100 years ago, and people are calling them, very well-known people doing live cell analysis are calling it graphene. So once again, they're either incompetent or they're liars.
People jump to conclusions so quickly, and then all of a sudden things spread like wildfire on the internet. It's so irresponsible.
It is so... Well, this is the 3 filters we talked about. I did a little public service announcement recently. I'm doing some fun videos with Brendan Murphy. We'll share with you guys. Socrates 3 filters. Listen, people, if you come across information and you do not know it to be 100% true, you don't share it and you don't listen to it. All right, right there. There's so many things here that are inconsistent. If people didn't share it, there'd be a lot less fear. If you don't know if it's true, don't share it. If it's not good information, don't share it and don't listen to it. And if it's not useful, don't share it and don't listen to it. Why do we want to hear anything that we don't know is true? It's not good and not useful.
Yeah, or at least if you're going to share something, have a disclaimer like, hey, I'm in the beginning stages of doing some research. These are some things I saw. Don't take my word for it. Continue your exploration, use discernment, et cetera, et cetera.
Please. And share it with people like us. You guys, I had information I found out. I saw those stupid microchips they were sharing and the micro technology. I'm not going to mention names, but I probably should. Images you've seen. And I shared my images with people. And I said, look, I've seen the same thing in stem cells, in exosomes, in urine, in saliva, in tears. This is not microtechnology, nanotechnology. This is salt. It's saline. It's the medium. And no one listened. Actually, some people that gave me shit and made me feel like an ass. And what happened eventually was nice. One day, Andrew Kaufman stood up for me and said it out loud. He said, you know what? I have images, Adam Bigelsen. I have images from Adam Bigelsen that are the same, and it's salt. And what I said to Andrew is I said, I can show you this glass of water and tell you it's water, but how do you know it's not gin or vodka? So anyone sharing microscopic images and making any claims about anything, which we're not, should not be listened to.
That's with the dark field microscopes, you cannot see nanoparticles.
No.
Right? You cannot see nanoparticles. with a dark field microscope. So
Remember,
people were making these ridiculous claims, nanoparticles in your blood with a live cell microscope. Adam's like, it's salt. I took a drop, I make a sauerkraut. The same patterns were there. This is not nanotechnology, it's salt.
Yeah.
remember
How much is
the
the dark? Oh, Joel.
Joel.
Go.
I was going to say, remember the magnetic bodies in the vaxxed population where people like magnetizing metal objects to their bodies?
Dude, and you'll laugh. Get this. I analyzed the Pfizer vaccine, okay, for a well-known group. And as we did it, this is hilarious, okay? We're in Mexico and we've got this, and I have a video I can share. It's 20 minutes where I show you us taking it out. You know, we've got the gloves on. You don't see my face, and we're putting it on. I have multiple camera angles, so there's no bullshit. Right to the damn microscope. And we're looking at it, and there's so much crap in there, guys. There are things definitely bigger than red cells that can clog vessels. So yes, heart issues, not a problem with that. Unknown stuff, wow. The closest substance we found to what we saw in that vial was dishwashing detergent. Okay? And as we looked at this, we got the magnet out. And I went over to the microscope and whoa, everything moved. Everything moved. Oh my God, we got chills. We're going to go viral. I don't know. I can't handle that. We did it a few times. And then I went home later and I thought, you know what? Something's weird. And I did it again. And then I realized the fucking magnet, excuse my language, people, was magnetizing the arm touching the slide. And I could have shared that information.
Yep.
And it would have gone crazy.
And the bottom line is, looking at it, we have no idea what's in it. We can't tell you what's in it. And neither can any dark field person out there. Okay? No. You can't analyze that with a dark field microscope. All they're going to do is come up with guesses.
Right. Let's do a couple of pictures.
Whatever's in it isn't probably in my best interest, was all I knew. No. Move on past those, Adam. Yeah, I think we've done enough pictures, unless you got a couple good ones at the end.
Yes. Worries. So we see emotions. Older emotions get more crystallized. Bottom right one's actually in the shape of the liver. So this is anger.
Pancreas.
Or pancreas. Thank you. The other one was liver. The colorful emotions, top left, that's end stage liver cancer. Red is irritation. Blue is the shock to the central nervous system. The black is necrotic tissue. What we would say is there's no energy getting through it. So these are things we've seen over and over.
Those are ones that get labeled by most live cell people as heavy metal toxicity. So here's your chelation and your heavy metal, supplements, basically. Now we're being bombarded by who knows what every single day of our lives here. Yeah. Right? Your body's naturally going to clean it out. If you have areas of stagnation, that's where it's going to deposit. Doing a detox is not going to help remove that barrier. Okay, you've got a dam on the river. That's where the garbage is going to sit. Yeah. So you remove the barrier, you let the body clean itself. But the heavy metal detox is a big thing these days, and they're missing the whole point. Yeah, we're being bombarded by crap every day. If the body's healthy, it's going to clean it out on its own.
Right. And the last one's here, guys. We see organs in the blood, but the organ is never the cause. Typically, it's the result. Lungs will show up because of grief issues. Dad's conclusion was chronic disease is 1,000% triggered emotionally, but there's a lung in the blood. We've seen this a lot. The colon. This person we could actually tell still had to go to the bathroom.
So crazy.
It is. Dad would say there's no secrets in the blood. It's all.
So is it like your consciousness? Like, this is where I'm trying to figure out how this image is showing up. It's like your consciousness is being shown through blood.
It's very simple, actually. And this one, the kidney one, is like, this one, come on, this matches the damn anatomy book.
Just for those listening, like, there are super, super clear images of, these organs being a kidney or a lung, like indisputable, showing up in hologram form in the blood.
Yeah. It's crazy when it happens, and it happens all the time. I mean, we question ourselves, like, once Dad left here, we were like, what are we doing? And then these things show up, and it's amazing what we've learned. We keep learning all the time with this, right? Now, here's how it works. You guys know this. Everything vibrates at its own frequency. All matter, right? So at this point in our bodies, we have different tissue, different organs. Everything vibrates at its own frequency. If something is out of balance, it changes the frequency, and now we have a disturbance field, an interference field. If everything does what it's supposed to do, it's a beautiful symphony. If something is an interference field or a disturbance field, that's how holograms are made. You're splitting a beam and you're taking a picture of a refraction, which is an interference field. So we have a frequency in the body, and like Josh said, it's like bats and dolphins. Something is off with the kidney, and the frequency is literally visible. And to me, guys, this is where it's crazy. This cannot physically be present, like Josh said, but as it leaves your body, the blood, this is energy becoming physically manifested in the form of your body's, what it's concerned about right at the moment. This is your body trying to tell you. Right now, the things we've seen, we see holograms, guys, and the white cells, they move towards it in the blood as we watch. And I just got a video, I sped it up, and these white cells come and they surround the hologram. What that means is right now, your body is working on that. Like right now, the things that are happening in our body are amazing. Our lymphatic system is like this alien technology that is, everything is trying to help us survive. Everything. Even when we have cancer, it's our body working for us in some way, shape, or form.
And nature evolves through symbiosis. I don't believe there's anything antagonistic in nature. And this is what we have to get away from. You know, Dad talked about one of our great faults in history was following Darwin in survival of the fittest, right? So I'm stronger than you, then I win. So we've got wars on cancer, wars on drugs, wars on terrorism, and it's all combative. Whereas we teach the work of Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, who preached everything evolved through symbiosis. So we're supposed to be living symbiotically with the earth, which we're not doing. We're supposed to live symbiotic with people, which we're not doing. Nature does not evolve through antagonism. It evolves through symbiosis. It's very, very important, which a lot of us understand, but that's not how society is created these days.
Can I ask this question? Because, you know, obviously you learned from German MDs. I guess your dad was impacted by German doctors. Have you ever come across the work of Dr. Hammer, like German New Medicine, and like looked at, because I'm so curious, like looking at pictures of the brain and how that shows like what relays cause adaptations in the body, and then looking at the blood, it just seems like they would go hand in hand in some way. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we teach Hammer's work. Hammer's work is part of my dad's book. And he talked about the theory of conflict shock, where there's a heavy traumatic emotion that happens and it actually short circuits the nervous system. So the same images he would read on the brain scans, we see in the blood.
So amazing.
And those same images that we see in the blood, they see on the brain scan, people are calling graphene. No, it's an emotional shock to the system is what it is. So Hammer's work with the conflict shock, a lot of it is based on old Eastern philosophy. You know, a lot of the acupuncturists in the Eastern philosophy have talked about the emotions, but he really pinpointed it and really read it physically on the brain, which is just awesome.
Well, and that's what I love, even with like looking into the blood or looking at the CT scan of the brain, is that like a lot of people with health, they speak very generally. But I think like pinpointing and finding these images really bring a level of specificity beyond just like, oh, you have a symptom. Oh, your body's detoxing. Like, but then like different people have symptoms in different ways, and so just to throw the detox label on everything, I just think again is just like is lazy.
Yes, absolutely. And we never did detoxes in our clinic.
No,
you support the body. You get the organs to clean themselves. You don't force the body to clean. The body doesn't like to be forced to clean. And if you want to do a detox, then you get it from your food, basically. You don't get it from a pill bottle.
And the way it works, guys, if you picture the river and the river flows, and then a twig falls on the edge of the river, debris accumulates. Now we can cleanse and detox that debris, or we can get rid of the damn twig. Okay? Now the way the body works is you have a scar, all right? And the scar is tissue that's pulling and constricting. So it pulls you. Now you have a strain pattern, all right? Now that puts pressure on something in the body based on your unique experience. I have a scar here, it pulls this way, and it puts pressure on my liver. As a result, I have anger issues, and I have problems with liver experience. Maybe I get towards hepatitis or something like that. All right. Now, everyone will have something that's pulling them somewhere and putting pressure on something. I mean, scars, we all have a scar. We all have the birth scar. And in the United States, the belly button, it's attached, the ligaments attached to the roof of the diaphragm and the pubic symphysis. And when you're born, they pull it out, and it's like a drawstring. It pulls you down, pulls your pubic symphysis up, and they cut it close. So you have this pretty little belly button, an innie. I think that's the medical term, right? As you grow up, it continues to pull. And when you're about 12 or 13, there's enough pressure on the liver, so that backs up, and then you have mononucleosis. This is like clockwork. It's
when
like
we see it on history form, mononucleosis is a direct result of your birth. And it's a direct result of the belly button, the umbilical cord being tied off too tight. So as we get taller and taller, we go through our growing phase. The diaphragm continues to pull down from the umbilical ligament onto your liver. Your liver starts to back up, and this is what they call mononucleosis. It is not transmittable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's incredible because again, obviously we talked about the impact emotions could have, but then a physical trauma like that's going to have the impact that it has on, your body. Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
And scars.
that's really important. Now I'm going to jump in here, Ed. That's
Good.
really important there because nothing in life is an accident. Everything happens for a reason. You bump your head, there's a message behind it. So the emotions set us up for who we are. It sets us up for the injury as well. So we see a big problem with scars a lot of the time. There's a physical problem with the scar, but the emotion behind what created that scar will dictate how much of an issue that scar is for you. So we tell the story a lot. Dad had a client, they got a lot better after a few months, maybe 80 or 90% better. He knew he was missing something. And he tracked it back to when they were 7 or 8 years old. The girl stepped on a rusty nail. She had to get a tetanus shot. The parents held her onto the table while the doctor gave her the shot. So she felt like she was being attacked by the doctor and the parents weren't there to protect her. And all of that emotion was stuck in that scar. Right? So the emotion has now become a physical problem. So you don't treat the emotion. You don't treat the emotion. You treat the physical, and then it can release the emotion. So he treated that scar. Everything turned around for him. So it's a very important distinction there. Emotions do set up all of our sickness, but once it becomes physical, you work on the physical to release the emotional.
So, how do you guys work on the physical?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, we used to have a lot of clinics over the years, so we always incorporated a lot of osteopathic work. So there was a physical, actual hands-on physical work that was going on. Scars need to be treated, so we would do injections of these isopathic remedies. So we would inject waste products from germs into the scar, and it would regenerate the scar. At the same time, because needles going into your body, the body goes into sympathetic mode, thinks it's being attacked. We do body work. So that relaxes the body. So you release the scars, you align the body, then you let the body take care of itself. So it's just like a car. The car is out of alignment. It doesn't matter what kind of gasoline you put into it. It's not going to drive straight. So we remove the blocks, we align the body, let the body take care of itself. So very simplistic. Now, without the clinics, we don't do injections, of course, anymore. We don't even treat people anymore. A lot of people are experimenting with essential oils and things like that to break down scar tissue. Sound therapy, we use sounds to actually break down scar tissue. The key to it, though, is that scar has a heavy emotional component to it. So you have to be aware about what you're opening up. I work with some doctors in Seattle who I won't mention, and the blood would say, the hysterectomy scar needs to be worked on. And he would come out and say, oh, well, there was a gallbladder scar too. I treated that and the kidney scar. Now the person's freaking out on the table having a healing crisis. The body wasn't ready to release all of that emotion. It was telling us what emotion it was ready to release.
Well, and Dad told us.
So
Dad told us
it gave you the answer, right? But then the doctor had to play God, and now we've got a healing crisis. The healing crisis is not a good thing. We've been taught that it's a good thing. The healing crisis happens when the doctor doesn't know what they're doing, or they're pushing the wrong buttons, or too many buttons. You treat people as hard as you can underneath their aggravation level. So it's hard. To make it simple, you figure out where the blocks in the body are, you remove the blocks, you align the body, let the body take care of itself. It's very, very simplistic.
Yeah, I come from a bodywork background as well. I mean, I've been into health in a lot of different areas for a while. My bodywork's rooted in Chinese meridian theory. And so much of what I talk about is what you guys just said. It's like, we got to bring a body from stagnation to a place of flow, and there's blockages in the meridian channels and flow of energy. And so when we support that process, a lot of times things get resolved, and there's energy that comes up to the surface, emotion that comes up to the surface. But I love what you said, because this healing crisis isn't ideal. You want to titrate if you can, and like people try to do this intense thing, and I think it can cause more damage in the long run.
Yeah, the body doesn't like to be pushed, which is the thing. And what Dad said about bodywork and structure, he said he combined the 3 divine philosophies: osteopathy, which he got from Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce was not into chiropractors, nothing abrasive, but a lot of chiropractors today are evolving and doing different things. But osteopathy, acupuncture, which is then the electrical experience of the body, brings emotions into, and then he said homeopathy, but changes to homotoxicology. But what he also said was, as a doctor, he never learned about the structure of the body. That was 2 extra years after your 7 years of medical school to become an osteopath. So they don't even understand it. And how many people, Josh, that came to our clinic, heart issues, kidney issues, they've been around the world to all the specialists, and they come to us, we look at the blood, we don't see the heart, we don't see the kidney, we see the structures out of alignment. We align the body, which takes pressure off the heart and pressure off the kidney, and their condition goes away.
Well, when you take your car to get aligned, so you got to take your body to get aligned too. And the herbalist and homeopath of 100 years ago was dealing with different things then than we're dealing with now. They weren't dealing with train wrecks and car accidents and these force impacts that people have on their body. So they could live off the land much easier. Now, the impact of society physically is so intense that we need a little more manual manipulation than we used to.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. And also just like when you think about back in days versus now, I mean, the stresses that we're dealing with, we're sitting more, we're not as mobile, we're wearing shoes more. So how does that impact us? How is our posture being distorted by all these new psychological things that we're navigating, the new stresses and getting further away from a natural world? Like I have friends that work in, the more, I guess, manual therapy, or even friends of mine that are functional patterns and practitioners that are all about biomechanics and supporting you to fix your posture. When their posture gets more optimal, their anxiety goes away, their digestion issues go away, and all this stuff happens. So it's incredible.
Yeah, it's very interesting how things have come. Even like you said, shoes. The invention of the shoe has to be the worst thing that ever happened in society, or one of the worst things.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're seeing these big heels, and I'm wearing these barefoot shoes now too. But I think the invention of the shoe is partially why people can't keep their wisdom teeth in their mouth anymore. All right.
Interesting.
So you've got the heel is always risen on shoes these days. So the heel is higher than the pad, the front of the foot, right? So what it's doing is tilting the body forward, and now the head's tilting back, and you're putting extra pressure on the wisdom teeth, and you're starting to create bruxism, basically. So I think part of the invention of the shoes is actually leading us to lose our wisdom teeth. It affects the whole structure of your body. We see it these days. These people have these tiny little asses that tuck in and these huge bellies, and we've become these plodding oafs walking around.
Yes, we need the barefoot shoes,
Yeah. I hear you, man.
Just a simple invention. We're disconnecting from the ground and from the earth, but it's affecting the posture. It's affecting the structure of our body.
Yep. In terms of like roll-on effects of scar pressure, it also brings to mind like birth trauma, C-sections, episiotomies,
Oh, yes. C-sections are interesting because the woman has a lot of issues with the C-section scar. We see that very common. There's weight issues. It's an energetic block right in the middle of the system.
Yeah.
And then the babies that don't go through the birth canal is a whole different experience too.
It's the mother's contractions that pump the baby's diaphragm when it's coming out, because the baby's diaphragm isn't strong enough to pump it on its own. So when you're born by cesarean, then the baby comes out essentially not knowing how to breathe. You have to teach that person how to breathe later on in life. Yeah, the episiotomies, God, they're a nightmare. And they're not always causing issues. So I'm sorry if people have had episiotomies. They don't always cause issues, but if they throw in what they call the daddy stitch to make it extra tight down there, that's affecting their hormones dramatically.
It is really these little things, guys. Yeah, it's these little things.
What is the daddy stitch? I've never heard of that before.
It's okay. You can explain it.
No, you go for it.
Well, no, I think it's called different things, but it's like during the birth process, the vagina tears a bit, and so they put the scar in so the vagina stays tight. I guess is that why it's called the daddy stitch?
Yep. We've even heard doctors tell the patient that they put an extra stitch for the dad.
Fuck.
Oh, got you.
Just another way that they're playing with Mother Nature. And that's one thing Dad said, is you never mess with Mother Nature. Too many practitioners, traditional alternative, are playing with your hormones. You never treated hormones, or you never treat them directly. You take pressure off the glands and the organs that produce the hormones. Okay, now you've got the bioidentical hormones, and you've got these IUDs and things like that, and they're playing with Mother Nature. And then we wonder why people are having such hormonal issues these days.
Well, and guys
having low testosterone, because that's what happens when you get older. But here's your testosterone supplements. We got 50-year-olds acting like they're 12, going through puberty again.
Well, let me mention the IUD real quick. The few things we ever say about viruses. This is an interesting one. Dad had a case, hepatitis, and as he looks at the blood, he sees massive inflammation. Obviously, he sees liver, and then he sees her IUD. And as Dad, the medical detective, what's an IUD designed to do? It's designed to create inflammation. So he says to the woman, how long have you had that? She's had it for 7 years. She's had inflammation for 7 years trapped in her body, right? Dad said, well, whatever the deal is, your body doesn't like the IUD. So she took out the IUD and her hepatitis went away. So here's the deal. Is it that a virus attacks the liver and now you have hepatitis, inflammation, or is it that you have inflammation, which causes symptoms that they label as hepatitis?
Trapped inflammation.
Trapped inflammation. Yeah, the inflammation is the issue. It's not a virus. So IUD, and there's one virus we can chalk off the list. Not that everyone that has hepatitis had an IUD, but there's an inflammation of the liver issue. And some of these things, I was looking up Edgar Casey stuff the other day. It's interesting. He was talking about diabetes in the spine. I'm going to start to read more of these things. For people just to observe their own patterns is important. And don't think you're crazy when you make a connection, that makes sense. I had this happen one day, and then, you know what? Then I had these headaches and things like that. I mean, the cranial pump, sacral pump, we fall on our butt, we get a headache. It's all connected. Everything is connected.
Yeah. I want to ask this question because I think it was 2004. I was in Greece, staying at this place on the island of Corfu, and I walked through a glass door, and it shattered. It came. I have a scar that came right across my nose. It fell down, and right here, and one here. Like, so what would you do? Like, again, I don't know exactly what issues I'm dealing with because of that. But like, what would you do to go, hey, like, how can we support the healing of that scar because it might be impacting you in some way?
Well, it depends. So the key is, what led to that injury in the first place. What was going on in your life in the year or two preceding that? Was life good? Was it a tough time in your life?
Well, it was 5 a.m. in the morning at a backpackers hostel, and I just finished like 5 hours of drinking, and then I just wasn't paying attention. But
Sure.
yeah,
that's just the injury, but something emotional had to lead to that injury.
Huh. Interesting.
Okay, so we always tell people to go back in their history. Usually a year or two preceding the injury or the surgery, there's something pretty major that happens. Maybe you lost your job, maybe a bad breakup, things like that. So we've seen people with some pretty nasty scars, but there's a very light emotional component to it.
Well, I mean, I left my whole, like, I switched my entire life path from what I was initially going to do after college into a much more alternative realm. And then I went to Greece just as a little like mini sabbatical. So, I mean, it was a big transitionary stage in my life. So that's interesting.
What about, for example, like circumcisions? Like, obviously there's no emotional history of the baby leading to that scar.
That's a great question. And actually there is. See, we're not religious, but we were born Jewish, and we didn't know that in Judaism they do a bris, which is very different than a circumcision, which I did not know that until recently. So with a bris, they just pick up some skin, they clip it, that's it. The baby goes, and you're good. So my friend worked with us, a cranial person in the clinic for years, and he says, you guys talk so much about scars. He says, I decided that I had to treat my circumcision scar. And he was angry for a week afterwards, pissed off. And I'm like, what's the big deal? He's like, you don't know what a circumcision is, do you? And he showed me videos, right? And it's freaking barbaric. I'm not going to talk about it, but it's barbaric. They're filleting things is what they're doing.
Yeah, we've done episodes.
Yeah. We've done episodes. And he's like, I was just a kid.
Yeah.
How could they do that to me?
Well, and when we saw the scar from the 8-year-old is one thing. Now put yourself, you're an infant, a child, you're young, you're absorbing everything. And now you've just been butchered.
Well, yeah, you're 2 days old in most cases.
Yeah, the body just knows that this is not right. Like that's one of the first thing they do is there's a book called Birth Without Violence, which is great. They pull you out and they smack you and they shine light in your eyes. And this is how they train bulls for bullfighting. They keep them in the dark for 2 weeks and let them into the light right in the ring. And they go crazy. So you got a baby, they shine the light in its face, they smack it, they'll vaccinate it, they'll circumcise it. Like we're born into this fear experience, and we see so much related to the belly button, birth scar. Even dad noticed autism patterns with 7th month of pregnancy. When people are pregnant, they're going through these emotionally traumatic experiences, and the children are affected by it. That's a result. So the scarring is interesting though too. As you say that, Yerasimos, your scar, a big scar may not even show up in the blood if it's not a consequence. We've seen little scars with huge consequences and big scars that didn't have the emotional experience to it. And we did see a lot, like Josh said, where the accident waiting to happen. We can take a timeline and look at all your health issues. And if you look at all your emotional issues, traumatic issues in general, life issues, they line up and they proceed almost every time. So you're going through a life change, right? It's an emotional thing. It's affecting your energy. It's a spiritual change. And you had a physical experience as a result of that. Josh, at one point, they figured out why the guy drove his motorcycle off the cliff. I had a car accident, and it was, I need to slow down. And you hit your head and you stop and you go, okay, stop. And you listen a little bit, and the universe was telling you your life needed to change. You did something
well,
physical.
And then the children are different. The one osteopath I went to wouldn't treat you over the age of 12 because he didn't want to deal with your adult shit. Right. So when the kid gets sick, it's a lesson for the parents. So, like you bumped your head, you cut your head up. That was something that you created on your own. a 2-day-old didn't create getting circumcised.
Yeah.
Right. That's straight on coming from the parents. It's coming from the society at that point in time. So there's a different emotional component to it. You're being attacked. It was not something you created. As we get older, we create our illness. When you're that young, you don't create your illness, and you have to track it back to what created it in the first place. So, yeah, to make a long answer short, yeah, circumcisions, we've seen them cause some interesting episodes with people physically and emotionally.
Yeah, and it's obviously a controversial issue for some, but so when you say you treat someone, so let's say like someone that's like 30, 40 years old is like, yo, I think I have some issues because this happened to me on day 2 of my life.
Mhm.
Like, you're talking about working with the body, but like, is there something else that you would do? I mean, am I just going to come in there and like pull my pants down, but like, hey guys, like fucking help me out?
Probably.
Yeah, the way we used to do it was actually very simple. So we used very few remedies. We didn't give you supplements. The remedies we used were Enderlein's remedies. So they were, the waste products of bacterials and fungals. So we were doing injections into scars or blocked areas to regenerate the area, and then we were combining osteopathy with it. So it was very simple. The isopathic remedies were great because they're very regenerative. Okay, so you're adding the waste product, you're adding the nutrients into the body, and it's not foreign to the body, so the body knows what to do with them, and they grow. They're growing in certain areas and doing what needs to be done. So yeah, it sounds simple, and it really was. So yeah, you came into the office, Dad would look at your blood, right? They would do some injections with some of these isopathics, do some osteopathic work. He'd look at your blood immediately afterwards. If the blood didn't change, he knew he wasn't getting the job done. So when you came to his clinic, you were charged one fee. You weren't charged for the treatment. You were charged for the result.
Right. And the
But
reality
very, very simplistic.
You got a scar, which is an energetic and physical restriction, right? So that's pulling you. So we release the scar. Then you've got the physical component. So we align that. And then we talk about the emotions getting locked in physically. So now we've just addressed you physically, energetically, and emotionally.
That's why the osteopathic work or the body work was so important, because we would release the emotion and the osteopath would help them release it physically without the actual, healing crisis.
Yeah.
Very
and then
important.
we would educate you and explain so you understood spiritually. So this was a full-on 4-body holistic integrative experience. Very simple.
So now that your father's not around, like how is this happening in terms of like, helping people through these issues? Who's doing the injections? Are you guys doing that? Are you just doing research? Like, I'm just curious, like if someone wanted to work with you or the things you're talking about, they're like, whoa, I feel like I want to experience that.
Yeah, it's a great question. These days, it's very frustrating. I talk with Bear Lando a lot about this. Right now we're there to educate people on how the body works, to give them information. The goal is, we used to gear towards practitioners. The goal is now to work with people so we can educate them so they don't get sick in the first place. So they don't have to go to their doctors. We have nobody right now that we can endorse as far as doing work on the person. Gotcha. Bear says the same thing. The practitioners, whether traditional or alternative, they're still using the allopathic model of treating the symptom. So it's very difficult for us. So we educate people, okay, this scar is the problem, and this part of your spine is out of alignment. We then point them towards acupuncture and osteopaths or cranial workers.
Gotcha.
Right.
So, but we physically don't do the treatments anymore. We don't know people who really do the treatments anymore in the way that we would endorse.
This has been frustrating, because we got results. We got results with everything from AIDS to zits. I mean, A to Z. And then what we do is look at blood. We give someone this awesome report, and we do the reports. We do them. In the United States, we can do them because we get the blood in the mail within 24 hours. I'm starting to do it in Mexico a little bit. We've had someone set up in Spain. It's a little dysfunctional, but we're trying to get microscopes everywhere so we can get blood from people to Josh. Now, as we do that, we educate you. Yep, you've got a scar, you've body work. But then what we've done is we've known practitioners that have had the tools, but they didn't use them the right way. And it was like, we're not here with this ego. We're not here to work with people with egos. We need sometimes just the technician. Here's the report, just this. That's it. And it's interesting because the more educated the practitioner, the more they want to put their 2 cents in, which is great. But at the same time, I didn't ask you for your input. We've sent people for body work and then they're doing family constellation therapy. That's, spiritual and physical. Just do the physical damn work. We send him to someone to do the scar therapy, and the guy says, oh, he treated all the scars. Well, the body didn't want all the scars treated. It wanted this scar treated. So we need, though, guys, we do need some sort of network of people as we're starting to teach. We have a 13-week course that's going to be available again in September, and you can probably sign up anytime and get to the content. But our important part is teaching the philosophy and theory behind what we do before anyone starts playing with a microscope. And you can get microscopes. Most of them these days are not geared for what we do because they're all geared for live blood analysis, which does not pay attention to the plasma like we do. There's a lot of things they don't care about. So the microscopes have changed based on the market. So right now, I think I have a guy that has the right microscopes. And as soon as I can test one, we'll tell people, and we're training technicians. You can have one. You can get blood from your family and all your friends, and you can get it to Josh, and we'll do the report. And then I'll get on with you and explain what's going on. We want to educate people so you don't have to go to your doctor.
And just because we don't have the practitioners to work with us, we don't want people to think there is no hope. And your
Right.
background's in body work. And like when I go to see my osteopath, I don't have to tell him what's in the blood. He'll put his hands on me and he'll tap right into it. So that's why we love the body workers, whether they're an osteopath or a cranial person. The right body worker can put their hands on your body and figure out where the issue is.
Yeah, and there's more subtle work too, like somatic experiencing based on Peter Levine's work that really allows a person to kind of discharge some of the sympathetic stress that's stored in the body that leads to some healing as well. So yeah, there is stuff out there, but I just love what you guys are all about, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's really cool. And I want to ask you this: do you find that people that haven't gone so deep into, let's say, higher education learning, they're the ones that are more open to this and want to learn it?
I never went to college. Dad said it was easy for me because nobody taught me the wrong way of doing things. I didn't know any better. He taught me. It just made sense.
Yeah.
So, the hardest part is to have to untrain what people have learned. And we found a lot of that in Seattle where we're working with a lot of these naturopaths. And what we were teaching went against their education.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now they've got a $200,000, student loan and their education is wrong. And the majority of them didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. It's really ironic that it's like, well, I like my practitioner. Well, they're not getting results. Take them out for dinner, but go see somebody else. You shouldn't have to see people forever. And it really is. Dad said health is simple. We can educate people, and you can take more accountability for your health and be more of a part of it. And someone like you, if you have something you do with people, I use the tuning forks. The Accutonics I like, and I have Eileen's tuning forks as well, Eileen McCusick. I like that stuff. If you can work with an acupuncturist who can do some needles with some scars, and then you do some body work, now you have something else going on.
Yeah.
And really, guys, it's not, Dad was rich and he was unhappy. And the difference between being rich and living rich, it's not that I want to be rich, but I need some money to do some things. Definitely.
Of course.
Yeah, the microscopes are about $10,000, although I'd like the $30,000 one, but whatever. At this point, though, it's really about us sharing this information because I want to live in a world with happy, healthy people. And if you have some thoughts and you want to help people, dude, that was it. Dad, when he read Edgar Casey's readings and found out that after every one, he recommended osteopathic body work. And with that, Dad tried it with every case. So you get together with somebody that does something different, and then you do a little body work and watch how that starts to work together. This is integrative, this is symbiotic, and this is what it's time to do. We need to regroup. We've been divided and conquered, and we all need to regroup.
Yeah. Amazing. Just quickly, is it easy to ship blood samples internationally?
It depends where you're at. It depends where you're at. What we found out is supposedly from the UK, you can get blood to Spain. We just have to get our Spanish guy to be a little more consistent. We do have a couple people in Australia that we're working with that ideally will be collection centers.
Yeah, generally it needs to go from in-country to in-country. So that is part of our goal, is really getting a microscope design that we could have. Dad's goal was to have a microscope in every country.
Yeah.
And we can connect with everybody that way. Yeah. With a student I've got in Spain, I can look through Zoom and see what he's reading in his microscope.
Josh, where are you based?
Me? I'm roaming the earth right now looking for a place to live.
Cool.
Right now I'm up in Auburn, outside of Sacramento, California. But yeah, I am looking for a place to relocate with water and no fires. So I'm open to suggestions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And as we get towards the end too, guys, our dad didn't feel like he was heard a lot. And what he ended up doing was making a lot of noise, and he did get in trouble for some of it. And he got in trouble for helping people. And what you can see with us is we're really excited about what we do. Sometimes I apologize for not letting people talk that interview us. We have a lot to share,
Great.
but it's a question of meeting people where they're at. And these days, Josh and I, we have an online school of health. We do webinars 2 a month. We have guests. We have we know people. The patients that were my dad's patients. Wow. Yeah. And they're coming out to tell their stories. And we're with people like Lando, we're making connections. I have Anna, she's the nanobiotechnology person, and she's actually with Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza. We have really interesting people, and we're talking about some very solid, empowering, educational things.
Mm-hmm.
It's not expensive. We want to connect with people. So we're online, which is great. And at the same time, we're going to start to put together more retreat type experiences so we can actually be with people. It's time to be with people, and it's time for us to stop talking and really do things. So
Well, it's time for people to start to understand how the body works and start to take control of their own healthcare.
Yeah.
Right. Once you get educated on how it works, you take control of it yourself. Then you don't have to rely on the outside influences.
Yeah. And I think the people that are more open to things like the work you're doing and other things out there, they have to have radical self-responsibility. If not, they're just going to want the quick fix. Like, just fix me. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to look inwards. I don't want to do shadow work. I don't want to fix my posture and get in shape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
And then that's you can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. Well, one of the last few years was a direct result of people not standing up for their own healthcare.
Yeah.
Dad took the bullet. He stood up for people's healthcare rights.
Yeah.
What happened, though, is the people didn't stand up for themselves. So it should not be the practitioner's job to fight for the right for them to heal people.
Right.
The people should be out there fighting for the right of that practitioner to do their job.
Yeah, I agree. Where can people find you? Like, what's your website and all the other information that you want to share?
We are the BigelsenAcademy.com. If you type up Bigelsen, Bigelsen, you'll find us. You'll find us on Quackwatch. There's some great information there. We have nothing to hide, and we get a lot of business from Quackwatch.
You get a lot of business from Quackwatch, actually.
Yep, that's where all the good doctors are. But there's a ton of stuff out there with Dad. Dad was on Dateline in the 90s. He's on a couple episodes of Guy MTV, interviews with George Norrie on Coast to Coast and things like that. There's a lot of information. Come to our website. We don't have a ton of information on our website. We're a little vague as we have been attacked and things like that. So, but we're accessible is our thing. We want to talk with people. We want to answer questions. We want to educate. We're very cautious about who we teach this work to. At the same time, if you get a microscope and start to get us blood, you can start to learn pretty easily because it ain't rocket science. I mean, as funny as it sounds, we used to say this, this is so easy, this work, even Josh can do it. But the reality is that Josh wasn't trained wrong. And these people have paid so much money, it's so valuable, their education, and unlearning is much harder than learning.
Yeah, for sure.
So
guys,
we're here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to just say this one thing to end it off. I love how you speak about your father, like it's so beautiful to see just like the respect that you have for him and how he's influenced your life and how this is like a family business and legacy. You don't see that a lot. And it's like, it's kind of getting me a little choked up because it's really sweet, like not a lot of people have that level of like respect for their parents. We're all on our journey. I get that, but it's just nice to see two brothers, I'm really close with my brothers, sit here, continuing on the legacy of their father and having impact on the world. And I just want to commend you both for that.
Okay. Yeah, our parents are heroes, that's for sure.
It hasn't been easy. And Dad, if you asked him when we were younger, he would say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he would ask us, do you want to be a doctor? And we'd say no. And he would say, good, because I would not let you. Do not do what I did.
He told me to never do what he does. He wanted me to be happy in life.
Yeah. But he was, he fought for his country in Vietnam, and he fought against his country for health freedom. As far as I'm concerned, he's a true hero, and your father should be. It would be nice if everyone's father was their hero. But this guy did things for people. And if he could have treated everyone for free, he would have. And right now it's really nice that people are learning who he was, because there are so many people right now, guys, that would not be able to do what they're doing if it wasn't for what he did.
And that's part of what we're doing, is we're working so hard to protect the integrity of his work and his legacy. That's why you heard us get so angry with the live cell community, because it's a direct affront to my father's work and legacy. So it's so important for us, and, I always say when I'm talking about things, we talk about we, and when I mean we, I mean me and Adam and my dad and Antoine Béchamp and Lamarck and Steiner and Wilhelm Reich. All these people, they can't be forgotten. Okay, this work is so important. It has to be carried on.
We stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. And it's not our stuff, man. This came through Dad. This is for us to share.
Yeah.
That's it.
Guys, much love, much respect. Thanks for being here. Thanks for this conversation. And to everyone listening, we hope you got a lot of value out of it. And if you feel called, head to BigelsenAcademy.com and look into these guys, contact them, and, pull that thread. Till next time, take care. What's up, everybody? Hope you enjoyed that conversation. If you want to discuss this episode personally with us and continue the conversation behind the scenes, you're more than welcome to become a member of our private membership community, Friends of the Truth. Lots of awesome value is added there. And, it's just a way for you to stay on the path of absorbing cutting edge knowledge and of your highest potential. So we'd love to meet you and connect should you feel the call and should you want to continue to support our work. Much love. Take care.
Smoke and mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time, they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean, fast forward in evolution to a place where we can share our confusions. Yeah, 450 BC, I'm sharing tea with confusion.